we've all been watching the Stanley Cup Finals, or at least some of us have. I'm not sure how many people are actually watching it, but they're in our town. They're in Edmonton. My first thought is, Anton Khudobin is clearly, the straw that stirs the drink in Dallas, and they're in the finals. Where does that leave Ben Bishop? I mean, the Oilers are looking for a goaltender to replace Mike Smith, to play alongside Koskinen, do the 1A, 1B situation. It's going to be tricky because the Oilers, there's a salary cap. You can't just go out and acquire anybody. And I think, hey, Ben Bishop's sitting around doing nothing. Once upon a time, the Oilers had interest in him, but he makes a lot of money. What are the Oilers' options when it comes to searching for a goaltender?
Well, it's a lot trickier than the fans sitting at home on their couches wanting, they throw out these ideas. Why don't they go get this guy? Why don't they go get that guy? The problem with the situation is they'd love to get these guys, but they already have a goaltender making $4.5 million with 2 years left. Okay, and the perception I think of Koskinen is he's a 1 and a 1A type goaltender. He's a guy who can play 40, but could he play 55? And I don't know if they think that. And I think they liked him in the regular season last year, playing with a split situation, but didn't play terribly well in the playoffs. So with Mike Smith, so now they're looking for a goalie. But unless there's hardly any cap room. I think they have $10 million. But if you bring in another goalie, trade for another goalie who's making the same amount of money as Koskinen, that's $9 million in goaltenders, and they're only playing half the games. So it kind of defeats the purpose. But I think it's pretty obvious when you see how Khudobin has got Dallas to this point that a goaltender can get you a long way, as Dwayne Rolison did in 2006 if you get the right goaltender. In terms of Bishop, I think all teams are very wary of him because he's hurt all the time. He always seems to be hurt, and part of that is being as big as he is, and he's hurt a lot, and now he's been hurt pretty much this entire playoff run. So any team taking him at his age, he's over 30, his age, and with the injury situation, I don't see the Oilers interested in that. But I think they're probably interested in Darcy Kemper in Arizona because it's a fire sale there, and they're looking to dump just about everybody. And that seems to be the normal thing in Arizona, where it's so unsettled in terms of their arena, the owners, whatever. They're always looking to save money somehow, even though they've seemingly got a billionaire owner, a new one anyway. But Kemper might cost a first-round draft choice, and I'm sure that's what they're going to these teams and saying, look, you want this guy? He's a pretty good goalie. 2 years left in his contract at $4.5 million, but we want a first-round draft choice for him because Arizona has no first-round draft choice, no second-round draft choice, no third-round draft choice. They've given them all up. Gave up one of them to get Taylor Hall. They're looking for a first-rounder now. Would the Oilers give up a first-rounder for Darcy Kemper? I doubt it, considering they don't have a second-rounder. I think in the Oilers situation in terms of goaltenders, I think they're kind of in one of those, look, we've got Connor McDavid and we got Leon Draisaitl, and they're in the prime of their careers. We have to help them out now. And trading a draft pick might be the price to help the team out now.
Now, the Oilers married to the idea of sticking with a tandem, Koskinen and someone else. Here's an idea. Would you entertain trading Koskinen if you're going to be getting a better goaltender back?
Who's taking Koskinen at $4.5 million?
I don't know. Somebody.
Not as a split, I don't think. Now Montreal took Jake Allen, who has 1 year left at about those dollars, $4 million, because they needed somebody for Carey Price, so he didn't have to play every game, and it's a 1 year contract, and they have tons of cap room, so they took him. The Oilers don't have a lot of cap room, and unless they could find a team that would take Koskinen at 4.5, and they would try to sign a goalie making $6 million, that would work. Like say the Oilers made a big push for Jacob Markstrom in Vancouver and said, okay, we'll give him a 5-year contract at $6 million a year, and Vancouver didn't want to do that. Well, then the Oilers would have this Jacob Markstrom, but then they'd have to find a team to take Koskinen and find a backup goalie at $1.5 million to play with Jacob Markstrom. So there's so many balls in the air, and there's so many teams, there's so many goalies out there, and a lot of teams looking for goalies. But I think, once the music stops, there might not be enough chairs for some of the goalies. But what do you give up for these goaltenders? And I think, to be honest, I think the ideal goaltender for the Oilers would be this goalie Alexander Georgiev, and for the Rangers, kind of stuck between the Russian Shestarikin, who they think is a starter, and Henrik Lundqvist in the last year of his contract. And what did they do with Henrik? And this guy's a good goalie, and he's only 24 years old. He doesn't make a ton of money. And if you still had Koskinen, you brought in this guy, and then you went a 1 and a 1A, and the other guy would have some upside. So eventually, maybe he could be a starter. But again, the Oilers, they have a first rounder and a third rounder, but they have no second rounder because they traded that for Athanasio.
When it comes to Georgiev, though, isn't that like Cam Talbot all over again? You're hoping this guy can be a number one.
It is. Cam was a bit older.
Sure. And how does that work with the Draisaitl McDavid being in their prime? I mean, don't you want to slam dunk?
It doesn't. But it would give you two goalies, and one of them's quite a bit younger than before, where you had Mike Smith at 38 and Koskinen over 30. So you'd at least have one goalie in his mid-20s, and you might look at him and say, okay, this guy can be a starter in another year. And then you've got a 24, 25-year-old starter at low money. But I'm certain that that's their number one objective right now is to find goaltending with a winger, high scoring winger, and a third line center, and another defenseman. So it's not like Ken Holland just has one ball in play here. He's got lots.